All right, let's talk about Testament. So I already watched this starter guide yesterday. Watched it a couple times actually, and this character definitely seems interesting. I think they're supposed to be kind of just like a mid-range kind of standard character based on. I think if you look on the website, it literally describes them as like a balanced type character, and it puts them at like 4-star difficulty, which is to say that they're easy. But there's some interesting things about this character that I definitely think are worth talking about. So they have their sign state, which is this dot that they explain is inflicted by certain special moves, but as far as I know, it's only inflicted by one special move and one super. So I don't really get why they say certain special moves. So I think it's literally only one. And it's this little crow move that they do. The crow move will inflict them with sign state, and then what the sign state does is once they're inflicted with it, you can basically detonate it by making contact with them with one of your normals. So like this, they just showed it there. And in this case, basically what it did is it gave them a plus on block close slash, right? Like this made this a frame trap, whereas this normally would not have been a frame trap, right? So immediately, this kind of reminds me of Kai's, what's it called, shock state? So it reminds me of shock state from Kai, where, you know, with Kai, it kind of enhances his special moves. Not super relevant with Kai, whereas with this character, I think it's going to be a bit more relevant because this essentially gives them, you know, plus frames or conversions off of things that they wouldn't have otherwise. Though it's a little bit odd to me because the main way you inflict it is with this crow move, which we'll talk about that again in a minute. This is their main projectile. This is a Grave Reaper, which is, it kind of looks like Gunflame basically, because they kind of just, you know, throw it across the ground or whatever. And this definitely seems like a really good move. I am not gonna lie. If you like to have like just good controlling type of tools, this seems like a really good move for that type of thing. And you can charge it, which gives you this really slow version, which basically reminds me of like Leo's H Fireball or Kai's H Sun Edge. Though it travels like even slower than them, I feel like. Like this thing is on the screen for like a minute, right? I think it's just out there. And it's also only one hit, unlike those other projectiles. So despite the fact that it moves slow, it is still only one hit. So this is the their little crow move they have. And basically the way that this move works is that without having the other pixie on the screen, which they were talking about that in the previous clip. So whenever they do the fireball, you'll see after the fireball up here at the top of the screen, it leaves a little pixie or familiar or whatever you want to call it. I've been calling it a pixie. I don't know why. I'm going to keep calling it a pixie. But it'll leave the pink pixie behind. And when the pink pixie is out, it gives you two things. It gives you access to your teleport, which they'll talk about later in the video, and it makes it to where the crow move they have, which they talk about next, it makes it to where the crow will track to where the pixie is, which they will show here. So normally the crow, when you just throw it, it will always just go above the character, right? Because the crow sits up like kind of above their head. So the crow doesn't really seem super good unless there's a pixie on the screen because it's not going to hit anybody, right? Like I guess, you know, if you're anticipating a jump, it can kind of cover that screen space decently well. Because it is kind of fast, you know, like it's a decently fast projectile, but like it seems pretty risky to just try and throw that out unless you have a pixie like somewhere down here, right? That way the crow will take more of a diagonal angle. Otherwise, it just seems kind of like a weak projectile. I don't think there's going to be a lot of times where you're going to want to use that unless there's a pixie on the screen. And specifically, the pixie has to be in a place where you can, you know, kind of actually make use of it, I guess. Like, you know, if the pixie is up here or something, then it's not particularly useful to you, right? Or if the pixie is, say, right here, and Soul is over here, the crow's not going to hit Soul because the crow goes to where the pixie is, right? So it seems it seems like it might be a little clunky. We're gonna have to see. But the crow is what inflicts this debuff on them for you. And my problem with this is that this seems like you have to jump through some hoops to get something that doesn't seem ultimately that strong to me. Like, yeah, this state, you know, puts them in a situation where you can hit them with one of your normals and then detonate it, essentially. Like, it's basically what's happening, right? But like, you have to get the fireball out. You have to do your fireball, which, as I said, that fireball move actually does seem pretty good. So you're already going to be wanting to do that, to be fair. And then you have to throw the crow afterwards, and the crow actually has to make contact with them. And then after all of that, you get the extra benefit of them being debuffed, right? To me, though, I feel like other characters, like the top tier characters in this game, kind of get these benefits without having to jump through the hoops, right? Like being able to like have conversions and normals, or sorry, conversions off of your normals, or having extra plus frames on your normals. That's things that like the top tiers just have, right? Like Soul Bad Guy right here, he just presses far slash and that basically is what this is, right? Except he didn't have to jump through hoops to do it. He just has it. You just press a button and you're +2 and you get a conversion off of it if it hits them. So it seems like some extra steps for something that is like maybe not that strong. So I feel like it's more so going to depend on like how good their base kit is, because this seems like a mild advantage to have on top of it. So we're gonna have to see like just how good they are when you don't have that applied. So this is their teleport, and this is a very weird move to me because I don't really get how this fits in their kit currently. So the way the teleport works is that whenever you have the pink pixie out and you do your teleport, you will teleport to where the pixie is at, right? So they do the teleport, bam, we're on this side now. And then they do it again, but this time the pixie is in front of Soul, they appear in front of Soul, right? If you don't have the pixie out, the teleport will just be in place, it doesn't go anywhere. I don't know if there's any like invincibility to this. I don't know if maybe you can like dodge projectiles or something. If you can, it seems basically pointless to do the teleport without having a pixie on the screen. And if you do have a pixie on the screen, you can hold down the button when you teleport to not actually teleport to the pixie. So you can still have like a mix-up, if you will. Now, I counted the frame data on this teleport from the previous video, from the actual trailer that showed Testament. And the teleport was like 40-ish frames total before they were actionable. That's a really long amount of time to be in recovery. So like, say right now, Testament just like teleported, right? You can very easily just press 5p on reaction to that. And even if they do the feint, you're whiffing a 5p, so it doesn't really matter. I can't think of situations where you would have this out for like a setup. There might be some, right? Like you get a knockdown and the knockdown has like the pink pixie on them or whatever, and like maybe you can do some stuff there. But it just seems like a really weird part of their kit, so I'm kind of curious to see like what we're actually gonna be able to find with this. It might be like a decent option against like zoners, like, you know, you get this behind Axel and now Axel has to think about this at least, but it feels very odd in their kit from everything else we've seen. But we'll see how it actually pans out. This is their overhead and low special. So the S version is the low and the H version is the overhead. I think this move is going to be really annoying, at least for the first couple of weeks. Like, you're probably going to see people get hit by this a lot early on. But I'm not sure if it's going to be ultimately long-term super good. It'll probably always be decent, just because it is something that you're going to always have to think about as the opponent, which I think is relevant. But in terms of being like high-low mix-up, I don't think this is going to be a particularly strong mix-up, because the low actually hits before the overhead does. When I counted frames, the low was about 25 frame startup and the overhead was about 28 frame startup, give or take like a frame or two maybe. So because of that, you can always just basically like fuzzy block, right? Like start low blocking whenever you see like the animation of Testament doing this, right? Because some people have pointed out that if you pay attention to Testament, the animation for this move is the same regardless of what version they do. They always stab their scythe in the ground the same exact way. So if you want to pay attention to what way it hits, like whether they're doing the high or the low, you have to pay attention to the glyph that comes out of them. So right here. And this appears about like 5 or 6 frames later than Testament does the animation. So if you're only paying attention to the glyph, they're quite a bit faster. The low becomes like 20 to 21 frames, for example. But because the low and the overhead don't hit on the same frame, and the overhead hits later, you can just start by crouch blocking when you see Testament do this animation, and then switch to high blocking afterwards. That said, they are things you have to think about at the end of any time Testament does like a block string, right? This is not a gapless block string. There is a gap here. You can actually see Soul moving right here. If we do it frame by frame, you can see that Soul leads block stun right here. So they're not gapless, but they are things that you're going to have to think about at pretty much any point in time, right? Which, even if they're not a true high-low mix-up, just the fact that you're going to have to commit mental energy to them seems pretty good to me. They're not ultimately that bad to get hit by, I guess. They just kind of knock you away, but it is still something you're going to have to think about. And then this is their super, and I think this is a really interesting super. This kind of reminds me of Calvados from Ramp. So you basically just do the super, and then the pixies will swarm you, essentially. And you can combo off this, because Testament is free to move after you send out the pixies. So you might be able to do some type of mix-up with this. You might be able to, I mean, obviously you can do combos with it, right? Obviously it's not invincible, I'm sure. But like maybe you can just throw it out in neutral and then run in behind it. Maybe it's like a neutral skip. This super seems really good to me. And it seems like one of the most obviously just like probably good things about them. And it inflicts the debuff on them, I'm pretty sure. They say that, right? Yeah, it does. So it puts the debuff on them for you, which is very nice. So this will be fun to watch. I don't know if it breaks the wall. I'm assuming it probably doesn't. So, and very important too about this, I want to point out is that, so in Guilty Gear, whenever you spend meter, right? If you do like a Roman cancel, you are put in what is called meter penalty. So there is a period of time where you will not gain meter after doing a Roman cancel, right? That meter penalty does not apply to supers. So if you can extend combos or have utility in a super, it is particularly useful in Guilty Gear because you get to avoid the meter penalty cooldown. So if this is easy and convenient to combo into, that's going to be very good for them. This is their other super. This is their reversal super. This one has invincibility. And it is quite large, as you can see. Like this is basically like Ram Super. That's what this looks like to me. I'm not sure the frame data on this, because when I counted the frame data on this in their reveal trailer, it was very slow, but counting frame data on a super from a video is like kind of hard to do, so I don't really know. But this just seems like a RAM super, so if it's fast, then this is a really, really good reversal super to have. If it ends up being slow though, it's going to be a little bit weaker than RAM super. And that's pretty much it for like the breakdown of their special moves. So the thing that's interesting to me is that their Fireball seems to be like the best special move they have, because you can just always do it whenever you want to, and it seems relatively safe, right? You just put a Fireball out. It's kind of like Gunflame, except it goes across the entire screen, which is terrifying actually. And then it puts out the Pixie for you, which you can then try to leverage the Crow to get the debuff on them or whatever. So like their mid-range control, this seems good. They have good normals as well, as you can see, like just big normals. I think that's their 5H. It's like Far Slash and 5H. So like they have great normals and they have a great projectile. So like their mid-range control, just like in a vacuum, seems very good, right? They have some good ways to like keep you guessing at the end of a string, so you can't just outright take advantage of, like you block a 5H, you do have to actually think about what they're going to do after that. Yeah, overall, I think they look pretty cool, and I'm definitely looking forward to labbing them when they come out. They seem like my type of character, because I like more like basic or simpler characters. I have my concerns about their game plan and just relative to how they're going to stack up to like the top tiers of this game currently. I will say one thing though, in regards to this character's strength. This is the last character of Season 1, and we know Season 2 is on the horizon. They probably already balanced this character with Season 2 in mind. Maybe, even if in a world where this character releases and maybe they're a little weak relative to the cast currently, it's probably because they're balanced with what Season 2 is going to be in mind. So just keep that in mind as well. I think that's important.